Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Today we have two featured guests, enduro snowmobile racers, Taylor Bunke and Andy Wenzlaff. So before I get into this interview, there's a few things I want to talk about. One is AMSOIL. Specifically, I want to talk about the Runs on Freedom campaign, and that is all about how you as a consumer have the power to decide what oil you're going to run in your vehicle. The OEMs can't dictate that, and if they do, they actually have to pay for the oil. Really cool program. I like the whole concept, and plus, if you've listened to these episodes before, you know that I get pretty excited about marketing campaigns, and just the way this one's been run, I really appreciate it. So I encourage you to check it out. Check out AMSOIL. They got some good products. They're good people there. I think you also know I don't work with people on the show unless I find that their values line with mine. So AMSOIL definitely fits that bill. We are working together, though, to make sure that you have the right information to make good decisions about your sponsorship program. That's why the show exists. We think that with the right mindset, coupled with focused and consistent action, is going to lead to a better sponsorship program for you. Now, I love to get feedback for these shows. Best way to do that, head over to iTunes, leave a rating and review. That is also a really good way to help ensure that we can continue to exist and continue to grow as a podcast, because honestly, what justifies our existence is listeners like you and people going out, downloading this show, leaving the feedback. That's what allows this show to continue. So if you want to still hear this stuff, go do it. Leave the rating and review. And then also subscribe. That's a great way to make sure that you don't miss upcoming episodes. We have Ben White coming on from Textron Off-Road next. He's a sponsorship manager there. So great episode coming up. Now this episode here was brought to you by 5 other awesome companies. SolderWeld, they produce game-changing metal bonding technology. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsports sponsorship. Bold Racing, they're a family race team. And GSP, XTV, UTV, Axle specialists. Neverlift Racing, they create comfortable, race-inspired apparel. And then Crash Act Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, including MBRP Powersports, MBRP Exhaust, HMK USA, Sudboy Traction, and GSP XTV. Without further ado, let's hop in. And this episode is pretty cool. I'll probably talk more about why we're even doing it this way, but we've got two guests on, Andy Wenzlaff and Taylor Bunke. Actually, did I even say those names right? I should have talked to you about that in the pre-interview. Did I even say your last names right?
Yeah, you got mine pretty good.
Yeah, mine was pretty close.
All right, I'll accept that. That's good. That's good. But no, we met at Heydays. You were in the Polaris line, signing autographs. My brother and I were coming through. We were all giddy to, get to talk to everybody. And I gave you my card. I said, give me a call sometime or send me a message. Let's hook up. And you both did it at the same time. And, we made this thing work. So I like that. I'm excited. But that's enough of my poor attempt at an introduction. Let's let you two introduce each other. So first off, Andy, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And then Taylor is going to follow up after that.
All right. So I'm 24 years old from Wisconsin. Race cross country in the pro class at the USXC. And then we also race over in Michigan at the Sioux 500.
Michigan? What? Sorry, I'm from Michigan, by the way. I don't know if anybody knows that, but
yeah, I couldn't tell.
All right, go ahead. Taylor, what about you?
Yeah, 22 years old, born and raised in northern Minnesota, professional snowmobile racer for Polaris. Focusing on cross-country racing and then also enduro racing, which is held over in Michigan.
Oh, I've heard of that state. I've heard really good things, actually, about that state. Now, do you two race together, right? You're partners in the same team, or?
Yep.
Yeah.
So for the Sioux I-500 this year, we're partnering up with Nelson Racing and driving that number 18 sled.
Nice. So you just trade off after so many laps?
Yep.
Yeah. It's 500-mile enduro race, so it's winds up being like an 8-hour event. Kind of like the Daytona 500 of snowmobiles.
Yeah.
So what winds up happening is we run into cautions or plow breaks or whatever track maintenance, and as we need, we switch drivers and change skis, add fuel, all that necessary maintenance, and get back out and keep pounding laps.
So I selfishly want to know more about the I-500 or even just enduro snowmobile racing is all completely. I don't know much about, or honestly I don't know much about it, but I think it's really cool, and I would like to do something like this one day. But there's a lot of people that listen right now. There's backcountry sledders, there's UTV racers, there's ATV racers, dirt bikes. Not many people I think know about this. So I don't know if one of you feels more comfortable, but maybe tell us a little bit more about the race itself and like what's some of the challenges that comes along with it.
Yeah, Till, you want to go ahead and a little bit about like pit strategy and all that stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So in an essence, enduro racing is what we do is we take a typical race chassis snowmobile, and we do kind of the same things that a snowcross, professional snowcross team would do to them. We mod them out with fully blown mod motors. They have to be limited to 600s. And then we kind of set them up to go around in a, left-handed circle all day. And typically a team is between 2 to 3 to 4 riders on a team. Some guys have actually done it by themselves, which is pretty incredible in my perspective. But guys have done it. But yeah, it's, we start right away in the morning, and we're lucky if we can get done in that 8-hour window. Yeah, I guess it's
that's
a
awesome.
different race than most, for sure. Say, Andy, do you have anything that you want to touch on for enduros? I mean, it's kind of hard for me to step back and explain it because, it's kind of in my blood a little bit. So I guess I need some questions to.
So, like you said, everything, we do all that with work and sleds and different riders and stuff, but another really cool aspect of it that you don't really see in any other type of snowmobile racing, at least, you see a lot in car racing, obviously, but is the pit strategy. So he mentioned a little bit, like plow breaks, stuff like that. You're racing for 8 hours. You got to stop for fuel more than a handful of times. So it's a lot of that stuff, pit strategy. You got to have a good crew chief. And with it being such a long race, the basic strategy is kind of just try and stay on the lead lap or within a lap or two of the lead lap for the first, 400 laps. And then if you're still hanging in there at that point, you can really give it a shot to get up to the front.
Yeah, so I've never raced this before, but have you ever heard of Vegas to Reno? It's an off-road race.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's same idea, right? It's just point to point, and pit strategy is huge in that case too. You've got basically have to survive. Many of the machines don't survive the entire race. Probably half of the machines that start the race don't finish it, even the $1 million trophy trucks. But you got to have your pit strategy set up where you've got somebody like the crew has to actually move from point to point, and they have to beat you there, right? So even if you have a breakdown with your pit vehicle, then now you got a problem because the racer is going to get to the spot, and the pit vehicle is not going to be there. So it's
right.
That stuff. I think that's pretty cool. I like that extra little bit of strategy that comes along with it.
Yep.
Yeah, it definitely adds more of a twist to it, because it can really come down to be anybody's game. You could be 3, 4, even 5 miles an hour slower than the fastest guy out there. But when it comes down to the end of the day, you still have a shot at taking home that race if you can just keep it alive for that 8 hours.
Right. Well, that's pretty cool. Well, what I want to do, since I took my opportunity for selfishness there to learn more about that race, but what I want to do next is learn more about your background, honestly. So let's start with your stories, your journey, how you got here. Let's start with how you got into motorsports. Let's start with the things that really got you excited about the industry. So, Andy, why don't you kick it off, and then we'll let Taylor follow up after that.
All right. Yeah. So, I really got into snowmobiling over any other motorsports to start with. My dad was an avid snowmobiler. I think I got a 120 when I was like 3.5 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point it was pretty much get home from school, pound the yard down to the grass until it was too dark to see anything. And just pretty much that day after day. I probably had a couple thousand miles on the 120 in the front yard when I was younger. And then fast forward, kind of just went through middle school, high school, that stuff, trail riding. We got a place up north and spent most of our weekends up there. And then as I was coming out of high school, a new series had opened up, more of a local Wisconsin series for cross country. So we decided to give it a shot there. Went out to, I think they had 3 races the first year. Went out and did those and did fairly well in the sport class. And, from that point on, me and my dad were just hooked on it. So just kept kind of working our way up, moved up to semi-pro, kept working on the sleds, learning more about setup, learning more about lines and racing and race strategy and all that. And then last year, actually 2 years ago now, moved up to the pro class and just been kind of learning the ropes there, trying to get faster and trying to run with everyone else in the pro class.
Nice. So what have you been up to most recently? I guess if you take us to today, what are you super excited about?
What I'm excited about today, obviously another good season in the USXC series, hopefully. The new Polaris Indy, that new chassis we're going to be on should be pretty good. And then ultimately, the biggest race I'm looking forward to this year is going to be riding over at the Sioux with Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a great team, a great sled, a great pit crew. And I really think that we have a team put together that can make some noise over there and hopefully run in the top 5, top 3, or even up at the top. So
nice.
Really looking forward to that.
When is that race?
I believe it's February 2nd. It's always the first weekend in February.
So let me think about this. I might.
It's always lined up with the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. There is a potential that I'm going to be in the UP anyways that weekend. It's for something different. I'd be on the west side versus the east side of the UP. But Let's just say if I play my cards right, I might be able to come home the long way and stop by that race. It would be a stretch, but it's possible.
It would definitely be worth your time.
Yeah.
Everybody who goes always has a really good review of it.
Yeah, I bet.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to be up there with my day job. Part of what we do there, it's a lot of vehicle testing. So every year they go up to Michigan Tech and do like a winter vehicle test. And so I'm going to be there for a week. There's a couple of options for the weeks. I don't know which one I will be there for, but if that's the case, then on the ride home, I think I might be coming home that day. So we'll see. I gotta keep that in mind because I'd love to see it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, good. Well, Taylor, what about you? Let's hear about your journey.
Mine's pretty similar to Andy's. I guess I have maybe a little bit more of a background or a family backing.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather actually started racing with Polaris in the mid '70s, back in the Midnight Blue Express days. He was a part of that team. Be Jerry Bunke, number 874. Then he was in an accident in the late 70s, lost his life.
Sorry to hear that.
So he passed away racing, and then my dad was kind of out of it. Always had a snow machine, but never really until he got to be 19, 20 years old. And then he decided to give cross country a try, and from the first race, he was hooked. And then it was always just one of those things that, you know, on the weekends, Dad was racing, so, you know, go follow Dad and watch the races, and, you know, kind of want to follow Dad's footsteps and be like him and, you know, do what he's doing. So by him, you know, taking that path and heading down the cross country road obviously led me to do the same. And, you know, it's been a really fun ride so far. You know, we've been able to learn a lot from each other and ride together and, you know, learn together. It's been pretty fun so far.
Awesome. Well, you know, your question, this next question, you might have the same answer as what Andy had, but I mean, what are you really excited about right now?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty much exactly like Andy's. I'm really excited for the cross country circuit to fire up. We run, I think we have, I want to say 7 scheduled events this year.
Okay.
To put him in a points champion. So I'm really, you know, excited for that to hit. Really want to do well in the points this year. I think I finished 4th overall last year in the points. Really want to make on the podium.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt my feelings to win the points. But aside from cross country, you know, I really am excited to hit the Sioux again. For the past, what has it been now? 3 years, I think, except for this past season. I've been racing that race with my dad, Gabe Bunke, and Aaron Christensen from Alberta. And I was lucky enough to be a part of it when those two won it 2 years in a row. So I've seen how exciting it is from, you know, the first person perspective when you do well. So, you know, kind of going out on my own a little bit and you know, trying to figure out that race from a different angle is, it's a different challenge, and it's really exciting to me. And I think we have a package that, you know, at the end of the day, there's no reason why we can't be up at the top. So
awesome.
It'll be fun, and I'm excited for it.
Awesome. I'm excited too. Like I said, this stuff, for whatever reason, it speaks to me. It speaks deep in my soul. I don't know why I've waited this long to start learning about it, but hey, you know, we all make mistakes in life.
You gotta start somewhere.
You gotta start somewhere. All right, well, I want to know next who your current partners, your current sponsors are. So, Andy, why don't you kind of walk us through that list, and then we'll let Taylor take it from there.
All right, yeah. I mean, there's a ton of people that help us out and get us to the race every week. But first off, I couldn't do it without the Polaris Racing Department. I'm sure Taylor will say the exact same thing. But Junior and Ben and Brad and all the guys over there do so much for us. And there's not a chance in the world we would be out in Minnesota competing every weekend without those guys helping us out. And then we also have the guys over at Woody's help us out a lot, getting us hooked up with traction products. The guys at HMK, for me, have been huge. Kirk's great to work with over there, always helping me out with gear. And if I blow out a pair of boots or anything like that, he's always right on top of it, getting me new stuff ready to go. And then Polaris Lubricants, Power Mad, Solaris, Venom Products, ZRP, and I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting, but there's just countless people that help us out, getting us to the race every weekend. People helping us out at the shop, getting the sleds ready for the weekend, the trailer packed, everything. Yeah. We just really couldn't do it without all of them.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm very familiar with Kirk too. He was nice enough at Heydays to let me and my brother set up in his booth and do some podcasting, so that was a lot of fun. We brought in Luke and AJ Lester from Snow Tracks and Dirt Tracks, so they came into the HMK booth, and we did some talking, and We had who else? Jess Klein and Casey Cordero came in and talked. There was probably one or two other people that came in that booth, but it was a lot of fun. Kirk's a good guy. He's been on the show as well. He was on episode 53, I think, 53.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I do. Kirk, he's a really good egg.
Yeah.
I had a chance to meet him out at Jackson Hole for the World Championship Hill Climbs, and he's just a stand-up guy.
definitely. He's funny
Not a
too.
bad business, yeah, he's all around just a decent guy to be around.
My
Big
brother
guy.
had never met or talked to Kirk before, and my brother was with me, and we were kind of helping him, do stuff with the tent and just hanging out there for a little bit. And he's just funny, and like the way he talks to his people, it's funny too. And my brother's like, man, I want to come work for this guy. Like I would love to come work here, and it was pretty funny. I think my brother bought more stuff at the booth than anybody else. He was so happy. But well, no, that's good stuff. Taylor, what about you?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to Andy's. I think I'm speaking for the both of us, and he touched on it too. But Ben Hayes and Tom Rigger Jr., Brad Sievers, all those guys at the Polaris Race Department, like Andy said, without those guys helping us, there's no way we'd be able to do what we're doing. But also, we got guys from Walker Evans that are helping us get our suspensions in tune, Woody's getting traction stuff squared away, Power Mad, Polaris Engineered Lubricants. I think we both share, those same ties.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a key role in what we do and the results we have. So to those guys, if they're listening, thank you. I hope we can keep our relationships going. It's been good so far. But then I also got other guys out there too. Jordan at Arctic FX, he's been awesome to work with. Always has our stuff looking sweet. Camzo Tracks, XLT Performance, XLT Engineering, and then another one I should hit would be the White Pine Lodge up in Christmas, Michigan.
Oh yeah,
It's a great spot to go snowmobiling or razoring in either summer or winter. It's right off the Lake Superior, great trail system.
right by the
awesome
casino
hotel.
too.
Yes, right
Yeah.
by the casino and right by the Foggy's Steakhouse.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've been there. I was just there. I didn't stay there last year, but I rode past it last year. It's a cool spot. And then Foggy's like classic. It's hard to beat that steakhouse. You got the opportunity to grill your own, and it's good stuff. And then the casino there, it's just like a big old nice barn out in the wilderness, right? It backs right up the snowmobile trail. I mean, last year I rode my sled, parked it, walked inside, played some slots. It's surreal, absolutely surreal.
It's kind of like a snowmobiler's, paradise when you're sick of being on the sled all day.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get off and everything's right there to have a good evening. So great location. Ivan over there at White Pine has been, he's been a big help to me and making sure my program is going the right direction. So, I got to give a shout out to him and thanks a bunch for everything he does.
Oh, that's awesome. And one thing, I just got to shout out Arctic FX. So I've not used them before for wraps, but they have such a cool online, I don't know what you call it, simulator where you can take your machine and change the colors of the wraps, and it is so cool. I mean, even if you just want ideas, even if you're not going to end up going with Arctic FX, one, after you start playing with it, you're like, well, I could just submit this and get it done through Arctic FX right now and be done, right? Yeah. But even just playing with the colors, what would my machine look like a different color? You can do that really easily. It's really cool.
Yeah. The one feature I like about their website is the tailored wraps or the signature wraps. You got your Curtis wrap, you got your I think Ross Robinson's got a wrap now.
He does. We just talked about that because he was just on the show. I don't know what
I
number
thought
this
it
one's
was
going to
on,
be.
but I haven't had a chance to listen to it.
Yeah, it was episode 111. I don't know when this episode releases. I think it's going to be like 117 or, I'm pretty far out in the future. So when I'm recording this, but I think his was 111. And yeah, he talked about I think he's got 2 signature wraps that are like blue camo and maybe a different kind of camo.
Oh yeah, sweet. But yeah, like that little, niche of, anybody can go in and take a baseline wrap from, your favorite, whether it's backcountry racer or snowcross team or Paul Thacker or whoever. I think we still have our signature wrap up there too.
Oh, really? That's pretty sweet.
But you can take the base wrap and simulate those guys that you kind of admire or idol or think has a really sweet looking wrap.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's a pretty sweet.
You know what we
need?
Niche. We need a Sponsored Rider Club podcast signature wrap.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
yep.
That'd be a good one.
It would sell at least one. At least one, because I would totally buy it. Well, okay, that's good stuff. Well, I'm going to kind of cut off the background part of the interview, and then we're going to take a quick couple of seconds to thank the sponsors, and then we'll hop in to Heat 2. I hear it constantly from racers that a good suspension setup is absolutely critical for performance, and that's why I'm going to talk to you next about Bold Racing and suspension. Now, it's really critical to understand your suspension, and there's so many intricacies with the valving and the shims and all this crazy equipment that you need to actually, rebuild and properly set up your suspension, that it's really important if you're ready for that next level of performance to partner with an awesome suspension company. Now, Bold Racing is that company. They're not only specialists with their suspension setups, but they also partner with companies that produce amazing custom components. And on top of that, they're a family race team. They actually race themselves, so they really understand the type of beating that your vehicle and your shocks can take. So what I want you to do is give them a call and just chat with them. Talk to them about suspension. Their number is 702-506-5354. If you're not ready for a phone call, go ahead and shoot them an email, bold.racing@yahoo.com. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out CrashAddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. Look, I'm sorry, but I gotta admit something. I like to look cool. I like to wear high quality clothing. I like it to be comfortable, and I also like it to portray the values that I also hold true to myself. That's why I like Neverlift Racing. So they were founded in 2013, and they are all about high quality, comfort, and looking cool. So, like I said before, exactly what I'm looking for out of clothing. Admittedly, my favorite shirt of all time is the Neverlift Racing silver badge t-shirt. Like, I wear this thing probably too often because way too many pictures of me on social media are wearing this shirt. Either way, they have a ton more out there. So go get your shirt. your hoodie, your hat, and actually your socks. Probably one of the most comfortable pair of socks I've ever owned too. And they got pretty cool things where it says never on one side, lift on the other. Really cool stuff. Get your apparel. Wear something that supports your values. Live fast, drive hard, never lift racing.
What's up, everyone? This is Mike Pasquarella, founder of Desert Vets Racing. When the team goes racing, we always have our SolderWeld products with us. Keeping the cars in the fight is our number one concern. With SolderWeld, we can do that. SolderWeld is a leading company in the U.S. for aluminum repair. They specialize in radiator repair on the fly. If you're stuck in the middle of the trail or a race with a whole new radiator, oil pan, or canister, or even an aluminum line, you can fix it right then and there in a matter of minutes with their AMSOIL aluminum repair rods and flux. It's the only complete and lasting fix in the off-road community. SolderWeld's new UTV off-road kits fit in every ride and are easy to access on the fly.
SolderWeld continues to make a huge positive impact on this industry. So I really encourage you, get in there now. Go to SolderWeld.us. Check out their products because this stuff is changing the game. 2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with TopThePodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you got to check out TopThePodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club Podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistall of TopThePodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to TopThePodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible. All right, well, welcome back. We are now in Heat 2, and I got to be honest with you, it's wearing on me right now this past week. I can tell, I could barely get my sentences out. It's been a rough, sleepless week for me, so I apologize to the audience and to Taylor and Andy for who knows how I'm actually going to come across with this interview, but I apologize ahead of time. But so let's get into Heat 2 though. That's what people are really here to hear about. Heat 1 is all about kind of building a relationship with you. Heat 2 is where all the meat of the podcast comes in. And that's where we talk about attracting and retaining sponsors. So we'll kind of bounce back and forth as we go through this interview. And you know what? I'm going to start with Andy this whole time. Let's start with Taylor. Walk us through an example of a time when you either made contact with a sponsor or built a relationship with a sponsor or landed one. And just kind of walk us through that, because that's one of the most important things that people want to know is, how do I actually make these relationships with sponsors?
Yeah. All right. So, there's a lot of different ways to go about that. You can be looking down avenues of, something kind of out of the realm of what you're working with. Like it could be something like a convenience store, trying to, land a sponsorship with them to help support for fuel, or, just have their name on the side of your machine. Or it could be something, that you use when you're racing or riding, or, doing everyday things. Like for me, I guess, like an example would be, like Walker Evans. They're the shocks that we use. They come on all of our stock race sleds, and most of Polaris's, terrain orientated trail sleds.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really something that jumped out right away. Obviously you work with them and you tune them and you try to get them better, to benefit yourself, in the racing side of things, benefit yourself and in trying to get better results. But as I've, worked through Polaris and been working with Ben Hayes on figuring out shocks, I've gotten to, meet and talk to some of the guys within Walker and build a relationship with those guys. And, it's brought forth more avenues of, bouncing questions off of, which benefits me as a rider, but it also kind of benefits, their side also, I believe, because it, it kind of brings into a real world effect of what we're seeing that maybe they don't necessarily see in testing or validation. So, just being able to be formal and upfront with, whoever you're working with or trying to work with, and building an in-depth relationship behind the scenes, whether it's, during the off season or midweek when you might not be riding or racing, but, you're still in communication with them. I think that is a crucial part in finding and trying to secure a good sponsor.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know what, Taylor, I'm going to give you a quick break, and I'm also going to give you a little softball here. So I'm gonna switch over to Andy in a second here, but I would love to come back to you and have you tell us a little bit about the White Pine Lodge, because I think that's pretty interesting, and it's one that we don't always hear about that kind of sponsorship. So, but let's hop to Andy real quick. Andy, tell us one of your own examples.
Okay, yeah. So I think I'm going to go back to Kirk and go to HMK because he's been great to work with. We first started working with HMK, not necessarily Kirk directly in the beginning, but I think that first year we were just kind of testing our foot in the waters. We just kind of reached out, explained what we were trying to do, and they were willing to, help us out with a little bit of a discount or whatever it was. But then it's just kind of snowballed from there. And like Taylor said, communicating with your sponsors is really the key. So a big thing for us is we try and send out pictures every week from each race that we own the copyright to, so they can use them in their catalogs and their social media posts, however they want to do them. And then at the end of every year, we also try and talk to them and figure out what we can do to grow that sponsorship kind of both ways. So what they can do for us to provide more value, whether it's, sharing our stuff on social media to try and expand our social media reach, or what can we do for them? Can we make a short video for them about their product? I think Taylor did one for PowerMad last year that was really good. Can we send them more pictures and make more posts about their stuff? Just kind of talk to them and have that open dialogue about what you guys can do to provide the value for each other to make that sponsorship worth something to both parties. Because if you're getting the value both ways, that's going to be a sustained relationship there. Yeah.
Well, I want to dig in a little bit on two of the comments you made. One was you said you reached out to them. Do you remember how? Was it like email or a phone call or a social media?
Yeah, I think so. I think the first year, I think we just went on their website, found whatever email we could find, info@HMK or something like that, and just reached out with a quick email. Hey, was wondering what you guys have available for sponsorship opportunities. Looking to get into this cross-country racing thing. Do you have a contact of someone I can chat with? It's something as simple as that. You can send to pretty much any company, and they'll have someone who deals with the sponsorship stuff, and will chat with you, get their email, and bounce back and forth with them.
Good deal. Yeah, I mean, that is it's a common avenue. I'll share one really quick example of something that I saw the other day. As part of this podcast, I also have a Facebook group that it's a little bit more of like a community forum, so you can ask questions on there. And one person came on and they're like, look, we've went on, in this specific case, I think it was Alpine Stars. So they went on to the Alpine Stars website and they were trying to find that email. And they're like, gosh, we can't find it. So they asked with the group, they said, hey, does somebody know the contact information for Alpine Stars? I'd love to get a hold of them and talk to them about sponsorship. Well, there was a couple people that was like, oh, yeah, I can't find it either, or no, I don't know, I apologize. But then one guy, which is Jason Simmer from Racing Addicts, he actually sponsors the show as well. He's like, oh, I live right down the road from them. I'll just go in there and ask them. So he went in there one day, asked them, got the email, sent it to the person. And I'm like, now that's a cool. That's just an interesting way to be able to get an email address. But I just want people to know, like, if you're really interested in the company and you can't find it, you have that resource, right? You can always connect with the Sponsored Rider Club and ask a question on there, or just start asking around, and somebody is probably going to have that information.
Yeah, or even just another, if there's another rider that's sponsored by that company, just reach out to them and say, hey, do you have a contact at so and so?
Yep. And,
I don't know about other types of racing so much, but in cross country, we're all pretty friendly, pretty big family, and we're always gonna help each other out.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that was one thing I want to dig into, was how you actually contact them. But the next thing is, you said it kind of snowballed from there, right? So what happened there? So you started off with a discount, right? But how did you approach the next conversation, or like how did it end up turning into more than that?
Yeah, so we went through that first year, had some good results, and then we kind of talked to, I think at that point we were dealing with Lucas over there. Just talked to him about seeing, what we could do to provide more value for them. And he wanted to see, social media stuff, and then what they could do for us, as far as, instead of just wearing, the pants and jersey and stuff like that, going head to toe HMK. I think that was at the point they were coming out with a new helmet that had a kind of a race orange design. So we just walked through that, and as we kind of grew up, and I moved up to semi-pro and then pro, and the results were still pretty good and getting some more exposure. They were, kind of willing to up what they were able to do for us in their racing budget.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's good, and I like how what you showed there was a progression on both levels, because, it does have to be a win-win. And that's part of how it sounds like you proposed it at first. Like, hey, I'm getting into this right now, and I expect to do well, but I don't know. And HMK is probably like, yeah, well, we would love it to have some more exposure. Maybe there was their opportunity to break into the cross country scene. I don't know, but so that's a win-win. And then the next one's like, okay, hey, well, we got some results. So that's helping you win. Well, we will give you, a new helmet or whatever it is. All right, that's another win. So and you kept progressing, and so yeah, results and win-win scenario. I think that was probably a good little summary of how that things worked out.
Yep.
Good. So as promised, I'm gonna go back to Taylor here, and I want to know a little bit more about the White Pine Lodge story.
All right. Yeah. So I guess you'd want to know how it all came about?
Yeah, let's hear that.
All right. So the guy, so Ivan Hansen from Michigan owns the White Pine Lodge.
Okay.
And Ivan is, he's an old enduro racer. He used to race enduros in the 80s. He actually won the Sioux. I think it was in the mid 80s he won the Sioux.
Okay.
So he's, been a big follower of enduro ever since he, kind of hung up his jacket, per se. Mm-hmm. And I just so happened I met him at I can't even remember where it was. I think we were in Roseau, Roseville, Minnesota,
Mm.
at Pro 5 Race Shop, which is, it used to be kind of the headquarters of, the cross-country racing back in the 80s, 90s,
Mm-hmm.
end of the 70s, going into the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Somehow, I don't remember what the occasion was, but I ran into him up there. And I was fairly young. Didn't really have much going for me for the racing thing. I hadn't really dabbled in it too much yet. But got to meet Ivan. We hung out. He liked me. He liked my personality, I guess, my demeanor. And from there, I'd always kind of kept in touch with him a little bit. And as I started racing, he was always more and more interested in how things were going and what was going on. And finally, I just sent him a resume. I typed up a resume and said I'm going racing. I'm going to be running a sport class. I don't have a cent to my name, but I want to give this a shot. You think you could help me out and let me try and do something that I want to try and do? And like, you know what? Absolutely. So he gave me, I think, might have been just an entry fee. It was like $100 or something just to go to the racetrack, and that was kind of the start of it.
Oh,
and awesome. Then it started to year after that. It just kind of snowballed, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's
things
awesome.
started to get bigger, started to get better, and I don't know. We've just stayed pretty good friends, and he's always just been a good supporter of me and always been interested in what's going on and how things are going. And he's actually been kind of a mentor in a sense for the Sioux. We've had many conversations of strategy and in different scenarios and how to get through them in the best way, or how his experiences played out. So it's been kind of fun having him as not just a sponsor, but someone that you can go back and quiz and learn from.
Now, I think that's a pretty cool point. It's getting harder and harder to find new things that we haven't talked about on the show before after doing, like I said, I think this is going to be 117 when it releases, but I don't think we've really ever talked about a sponsor serving that dual role as a mentor as well. I mean, that's a huge benefit. I could even see, depending on the right person, right, you just justify, all I want from you is advice, right? I'll promote you. All I want is advice. And
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's an interesting way of looking at the sponsorship world. So I think that's kind of cool that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it is. There's more to it than just writing a check and hopping on a dirt bike or a snowmobile or a four-wheeler and just going racing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole world behind it that, as I'm sure most of the people listening to this podcast realize, but it comes down to, talking to the people who've been there and trying to learn from them.
Yeah, and that's honestly why this show exists. When you look at what the media shows a lot, it's, we raced and it was hard and, the machine broke and all of those things which are legitimately hard, right? When you're in the moment, you got to have the physical prowess, you got to have the endurance, you got to have your equipment running right. But there's all the stuff that comes behind the scenes. And I think people can relate to a lot of it, right? They can relate to the maintenance, or they can relate to, oh, wow, you had to, buy that trailer or buy that truck, or, you have to have a garage to store it and work on it. But then you start thinking, how could you afford the trailer? How could you afford the truck? How could you afford the tools? How did you even find out about this race? How did you learn the rules and regulations to enter the race? And then it just, like, well, I guess we'll keep saying the word snowballed, right? It snowballs from there. And I felt like there was an area too that people just needed help with, because that stuff is complicated in itself. I was hoping that I could at least help clarify the sponsorship part of it so that the people can really focus on the other pieces that they're there to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and the sponsorship thing is, I mean, it is tricky. It's hard to, to nail it down and to get it right. It takes, attempts. You got to, try and try and try again before you'll get it right.
Yeah,
it doesn't always go the first try.
If anybody thinks that, or maybe if anybody has taken the sponsorship world for granted, like this is a good test to find out if that's happened. Try to explain it to somebody who is not involved in racing. Just give it a shot, because people sometimes that they'll ask me what my show's about, and I'll tell them, they're like, "What?" And I'll say, "Oh, well, you gotta get you gotta get it sponsored, most likely to race at higher and higher levels." And they're like, "Oh, what?" And you're like, "Okay, look, picture a commercial, but not, picture that." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Okay, picture this, like you have a deal to promote a company based off of race results." They're like, "Okay, I gotta go. I don't have time to listen to you try to make things up." Like, that's just how it is. Like, I don't know why it is that way, but it is. Until you get into the world and you just, I think, I can't remember even which one of you said it earlier, but you're like, I don't even remember how it happened, or it just happened, and like, or you're so used to it. I think it might have been you, Taylor. You're like, I've been so ingrained, and I don't even know how to explain it anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, good. Well, you know what? I mean, we've been flying already on time, so I might skip a couple questions here, but honestly, I do like asking people about when things don't go well with a sponsor. Not to put anybody down, that's not the intent. The intent is to say, like, have you run into problems? And if so, how'd you solve them? So do either of you have an example of a time when, things didn't really go as expected with a sponsor?
I mean, I've been shot down before, obviously. Like, I can't really think of a, one off the top of my head, but obviously when you are starting out racing, you're going to have, attempts at trying to acquire sponsors, whether it's, something like Oakley, when you're first starting out, those big name sponsors are intriguing to you, even though they might not be necessarily relative to what you're doing. There's maybe a lot better valued sponsors. You shoot for these big companies and you get shot down. And that's just the nature of it. That happens. And that's happened before multiple times. So
yeah, that's
I guess
actually,
answer your question, yeah.
No,
I have had that, but I
does.
can't really put my finger on, a specific right now off the top of my head.
Well, I did like something you just said there. With a lot of people, they know certain brands, right, that they'll reach out to. Most people aren't going to think to reach out to the White Pine Lodges of the world, right? Even though that's probably the best case scenario for them at that point. You think of the names that you're familiar with. You think of the names that you see on television sponsoring these other athletes. And there's nothing wrong with that, because in many cases that does end up working out. But, to get started, I really like the approach of starting with a smaller company. I'll just share with you my experience with this show. TopThePodium.com was the first sponsor to come on board with this show. And I had sponsors as part of a different business, but, with the show, I didn't really know how it was going to turn out. But Jeff Vanistal, he was actually on episode 2 of the show. He's the global community manager, I think that's what his title is, for Can-Am, and he also owns TopThePodium.com. Either way, right after that show with him, he started asking me questions like, hey, could he sponsor the show? And I was like, yeah, but I don't even know I'm still learning this whole thing myself. I don't even know what to do with that. And he helped me, he actually helped me better understand what the expectation should be for, the show and for him being a sponsor. And that was very beneficial. so my title sponsor for the show is AMSOIL, and they've been on since May of 2018. It's now October of 2018 when we're recording this. And I would not, let's say if I would have pitched to AMSOIL day one, it would have been a wreck. There's no way they'd be sponsoring right now because I wouldn't have known what to say. But,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
by
And
partnering
that's
with
part
some
of
of the
it.
smaller companies, not only did they get value, I got value too. They helped me grow. I helped them grow. It's win-win. And then ultimately now,
Yep.
you know, I'm connected with AMSOIL, which also is helping Top the Podium because it adds more visibility, more credibility.
Yeah. 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 It's
Yeah,
all one.
definitely.
It's all one big learning curve.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Andy, did you have an example, or was that Andy? Who gave the example? It's hard telling you two apart sometimes when I'm hearing you talk.
Let me tell you.
That was Taylor.
Okay, good.
I don't really have a specific example either, but kind of like what Taylor said, you're probably going to hear no a lot when you're first getting started. Be ready to hear no. I would say definitely don't be upset about that. You got to realize that these companies aren't just, they're a business. They're not just going to be giving away money. They need to see value. But the main thing is if you have that communication with someone, even if it's just someone saying you no or telling you no, shoot an email back to them and ask them, you know, what can I do in the future to provide value for your company, or what could I have provided that maybe we could have worked something out.
Yeah.
And just try and learn from people telling you no. And like you said, it's just a big learning curve for sponsorship or talking to people and getting sponsors.
I like that little feedback loop there. Try to learn from the no. That's another one I don't think we've talked about in the show before. Yeah, I think that's a great point. If you get a no and you can at least find out why, fantastic, right? Because now you know what to do different. Maybe it's that company again. Maybe it's someone else in the future. I have a kind of an off the wall thing to share. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I'm listening to one right now that's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And there's one, you've heard me say win-win on this show like 5 times already. It's the chapter I just read today was called Win-Win. And essentially what he was talking about, the author was talking about, was this example where there was a guy, he owned a computer company or something, and he had this contract with another company, and he did something wrong with the contract, and he basically went to the company. It was, I think, $85,000, and or maybe it was $85 million. I don't know. Either way, big numbers. And he went to them and said, "Hey, I think we kind of messed this up. If you want, like, I'll cut the contract and you'll get all your money back, no questions asked. We messed up." And the other company is like, "Yeah, you know, I agree. Thank you for that. We'll take the money back." And they did. And like 3 months later, they came back and said, "You know what? We really like how you handled that last situation. We have a new deal that we'd like to talk to you about, and it's for $240 million or $240,000, whatever it was." And looking at it that way, you're like, holy cow! If they would have just, I guess, held them to the contract that they'd agreed to and been really aggressive, they would have only made $83,000 or $83 million. But they did the right thing. You know, they handled it a good way. They learned from it, and ultimately they had triple the returns in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I'm sure Taylor's going to agree with this, but just kind of always presenting yourself and doing the right thing, presenting yourself well all the time. You know, even when you're in the trailer, something doesn't go your way at a race, don't be stomping off. Be a good sport about it. Be a good loser. There's always people watching, and stuff is always going to get back to sponsors, even if it takes a year to get back to them. Just do your best to always present yourself in a good light and present yourself the best you can.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think I'm going to condense down this next question here just around uniqueness, right? So I think it's really cool when people do something different or unique to promote their sponsors. it gets hard to do that, honestly, because there's just so many things that people have done out in the world with social media and with, events. But do either of you have an example of something that you think is kind of different, or just, maybe that your sponsors were excited about when you did it?
I don't think I have anything crazy unique that hasn't been done. But as far as for us, we're starting to work with some of our sponsors to do some like social media giveaway type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it is new to us. I think that's something our sponsors and us are really excited. I think we have stuff from like HMK, Power Mad, maybe some Polaris lubricant stuff that we're all going to be giving away this year already lined up. But I mean, that stuff's all been done before. It's not anything crazy unique. Just kind of new to us.
Yeah, I think giveaways are it's a good option. Companies can run their own giveaways, but it takes resources to do that. If anybody's ever run a giveaway who's listened to the show before, they know that it's always way harder than you think it's going to be, even for simple, smaller giveaways. So I think that's a pretty big value add for companies if, they can have the racers or the riders actually run that giveaway for them. And I don't know. I like them personally. I think it's a pretty good and relatively low cost way of promoting a product or a business.
Yep, I agree.
Cool. Well, is there anything else that you all want to kind of leave for a tip before we wrap up? Any other little fun comments or things that you want to share that we haven't really gotten to yet?
Not really. I mean, the only thing that that I believe is just if you can have a strong relationship with your sponsors outside of just racing, it speaks volumes. Like staying in contact out of the off season, just stuff to show them that you're willing to put in the extra effort, more so than the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
Helps to keep you a little more reputable, makes you look a little bit better than the guy who just kind of brushes it under the rug and doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. Well, we're gonna wrap things up now, and the thing that I always like to ask to wrap up is, what's the best way to connect with you? So, Taylor, how should our listeners reach out to you if they need to connect?
Yeah, sure. Facebook is a big, it's a big avenue for us. All of our information comes through Facebook at Bunke Racing. That's our race team. All of our, updated sponsors, updated race results, videos, promotions. We just released a promotion for, Polaris engineered lubricants. They have a BOGO going on right now. You buy one, get one free on any oil, relative to motorcycles, snowmobiles, ATVs, and a couple other of, perks. So, all of those kind of things roll through our Facebook page. But we also have a website, which is bunkeracing.com. And then also an Instagram page, which is just the tag Bunke14, which is BUNKE 14.
Perfect. Well, Andy, same question.
Yeah, as far as for us, we kind of do a similar thing. We don't have a website, but we do have our Facebook page, which, like Taylor said, we kind of throw out all our race results, any media stuff we do. We try to do some video edits every week from the races that we're at, photos, stuff like that. You can always send us a message through there. We'll get back to people as fast as we can. And then also on Instagram, my handle is just going to be Wenzlaff117, which is WENZLAFF 117.
Nice. Well, I really appreciate the two of you, for one, reaching out in coordinating this activity. 2, for sharing all your experiences. And 3, for putting up with my garbled up interview today. Trying to keep things straight in my mind without sleeping for a couple days. But I really appreciate that. I had a really good time. But we got to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming guests. We have Ben White from Textron Off-Road up next. And also follow us on social media, specifically our Facebook page. That's where we do our live episodes. We do 2 live shows every month on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern. To get insider access to upcoming guests, check out the Sponsored Rider Club. It is a group on Facebook that is open to you coming in and asking questions about sponsorship, and you can get immediate feedback. A special thanks goes out to our sponsors, AMSOIL, Neverlift Racing, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, GSP XTV Axles, NBRP Power Sports, NBRP Exhaust, HMK USA, and Stud Boy Traction. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.